You are listening to The Edge, a podcast for personal development junkies and visionaries living right at the precipice of oh shit meets fuck yeah. I'm Nadia Munda, an embodiment and relationship coach and a lover of all edges. Stick around to listen to raw, unpolished conversations where we explore our personal and collective edges in all their erotic glory. If you are looking for a mentor this year that will really help facilitate the next level of potency in your leadership and in your erotic alchemy process, which just means learning how to amplify, transmute, and shift energies that sometimes can feel stagnant or heavy or challenging or contracting, and you want to turn them essentially into erotic, electrifying turn on, and you want to play right at that edge that I like to call the erotic edge, then I highly recommend checking out my new program. It's a mentorship for my one-on-one clients that is all about us learning to become masters of Eros, learning how to work with the seasons of death and winter and loss and turn them into something, from something that depletes us into something that fuels us. And so I highly, highly recommend checking out the page. It's nadiamundla.com/erotic edge. We've got a couple of different options for you. We have the way that I love to work is a 6-month container always. It's tried, tested, and true. I've been doing it for 9 years. And then there's also a 3-month container if you are someone who likes to take everything and compact it a little bit more. If you're really working on going into an in-depth immersion over a smaller amount of time, if you don't have the space to go to sort of pull it out and do it over 6 months, then this 3-month package could be an option for you as well. In both cases, you get Voxer support from me. In both cases, you get the option to do a 2-day in-person erotic movement immersion with me, which also can be done online, virtually on Zoom, if you're someone who cannot travel, but you really want to do this. So there are so many options, but this is a combination of sort of traditional life coaching calls combined with an in-person immersion, combined with in-between call support. So really it's the full, what do they call it? The full enchilada, ladies. So reach out, take a look at the site, and if you have any questions, you know where to find me. There's a direct link to apply there. That's always the best way to get on an exploration call with me, where we really get a sense of whether it's a fit or not. Because in this particular program, I only take a handful of people a year. So I always love to hop on the phone and make sure that this is going to be a situation that's like win-win-win, where there's going to be magic and fireworks, and it's going to be the best decision for you. All right. So I hope to talk to you soon.
So one thing I wanted to actually mention to you is that I have a very deep connection with your name. So I don't know if you know this, but I'm Lebanese. I grew up in Lebanon, so I speak Arabic, and Emir in Arabic means king, which I think is just so great for also listeners to know about that. And when I was in kindergarten, check this out, in kindergarten, I had my first crush, and his name was Emir.
Oh.
And I was like, like thinking back, like he was such a kind man too. And just like even though he was such a child, like he had the energy of king. So anyways, when we booked this conversation, I was thinking, it just reminded me of that guy. And I was like, I got to tell him. So funny.
Yeah. It actually means prince. It's prince in the making, or in some regions, the Emir is kind of the leader. But yes, you're on the right path. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's true. Actually, maybe it is prince and not king. Either way, royalty.
Royalty, right?
Royalty. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I'm just really excited to get to meet you and just get into like the mind and the presence of a man who's guiding men on a journey that I think is so, so important. And so some stuff that we started talking about before pressing record, and honestly, that was like the top of my list of things to ask you about when I finally got a chance to talk to you, was about this, the importance of men connecting to nature in order to understand themselves, in order to become better leaders, and also to just understand women and the feminine in general. And so you were starting to share some things with me, and I would just love to bring that back into the space. Like, what is it that, when you look at the world, what is it that is really missing that you see is going to be the most important medicine for all of us to be taking in this realm of relationship to nature?
Well, I think what we're starting to see is the fruits that are not bearing from what society's promising. So society's promising everything to you, and in return, what it is actually doing is it is hijacking your attention for its own purposes. So what's happening is men are feeling disconnected from themselves. They're not spending enough time um, um, in letting go or in receiving nourishment, or connecting to what they're feeling. I mean, I get men coming into that I work with that they can't penetrate. They don't know what they're feeling. They just have a sense of malaise or defeat around living this life. And my philosophy is that, you know, that this society is going to have bells and whistles for you to chase. Somebody's benefiting and it's not you.
Oh, definitely.
Somebody's benefiting and it's not you. So the work that I do with men is to support them in letting go of their attachments to what they think they need, whether that is a relationship, whether that is their bank account or a house, anything outside of themselves. I think we can narrow down the spiritual path to a realization that in reality, we need no thing outside of ourselves. In reality, we need no thing outside of ourselves, which really when you take the grips off of that, you make someone more available for life. The flow of energy does not move through a contracted body. It moves through an open body. And that open body really is availing a man to have a deeper relationship with himself. And ultimately, the realization that he is not that he is not separate than this earth. Just because our feet can come off the earth, it doesn't mean we're separate from her. And we can see this playing out by the unconscious behavior of men towards the planet and unconscious behavior towards her. When I say her, I mean the big her, representative of the feminine, who is the reflection of that essence and that power. So when you bring this unconsciousness into the field, what you start to experience is men trying to control women, which is the longest battle, a losing battle that they have been that they've been embarking on. Man has been trying to control nature since it thought it was separate from it, which is one of the biggest disservices that religion brought to the table. They separated man from spirit, matter from spirit. You don't have to go outside of your body to find this connection. You simply need to learn how to take your claws off of the things you think you need, and to simply settle. That's why in one of my 4-month programs, one of the requirements is 1 hour of silence in nature every week. That's one of the requirements. Right?
Yeah, it's so key, because everywhere we look, whenever we get too attached to the things and the tools and anything, like you said, that's outside of us, it is automatically us choosing to disempower ourselves, choosing to give control to someone else. And I love what you said about, attention really being this key asset or key item that everyone is trying to get from us. And we get to choose, like we actually get to choose. We have to wake up every single day and go, where am I putting my attention? And who am I giving my power to? And they very much overlap, because whoever you give your attention to, you give your power to.
Well, they say, where your attention goes actually changes the molecular structure of reality. Okay, that is a powerful tool.
Mm-hmm.
Alongside of breath, attention, sound, movement, and visualization, which are the 5 elements that we work with in our community in diving deeper into this vast inner world, right? As we work on expressing what didn't get expressed, as we sit with what needed to be sat with in order to complete, let's say, an emotional cycle. So your attention is the pen that you use to draw your reality. You're crafting your reality through your attention. And if your attention is on autopilot going to Instagram every 5 minutes, guess who's benefiting here?
Not you.
Not you. Advertisers on Instagram and Instagram are benefiting.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yes. It's such an interesting time, and what a beautiful initiation for us. And it's so interesting that you spoke about these 5 pillars, because 4 of them are what I also got trained in as ways to move energy. And that is the, breath, sound, movement, and tears was the 4th one for us. And so when I'm, we're sort of parallel opposites, you and I, in that I primarily work with women, you primarily work with men, and there's a little bit of overlap. Like we both sort of work a little bit with the other gender, and then also couples. And when I'm working with women, and I work with a lot of visionaries and leaders, that's that same piece, the piece around how connected are you to nature, and starting with your body, because your body is your direct conduit to nature, because it is nature. And so it's like, that's the first portal in, is, okay, if you are connected to yourself, to your own body, you are going to make different decisions as a leader. You just are, because then your body is connected to the collective body and the global body, and everything you start to feel the domino effect of how one decision ripples out into the world. And so I love that so much of your work is around nature, because I feel like there is very much a bifurcation of like, okay, there's people going into men's and women's work. It's very much about like, okay, for a better sex life, or so that I feel better, or so that I make more money. And the nature piece is often like people who are working in with the natural worlds, either in the shamanism world or in the environmentalism world. And there seems to be too much of a separation. And the whole point is a union, like that there is actually no separation between us and nature, and that nature has to be a key part of us when we are working our own journey and moving into leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. The work, the flavor of men's work that I bring to the world is uniquely mine. It's not by any means. So it's the reason I say that is because there's something unique about my life experience that translates into medicine when deeply connected to that source for me. So my work is somatic and shamanic. So in the field of men's work, where we go, what do we explore, what we look at, what we confront within ourselves. I use embodiments, somatic and shamanic paths in that exploration. There's also a piece here that we have to, I'd like to bring to the table. Let me see, I'd like to hear, there's a lot of talk about patriarchy. There's a lot of talk about, there is there is a overarching note that we have to be cognizant of unconsciously, we could potentially be participating in misogyny if we're not careful.
Yep.
So in the name of, so in the work that, like when I work with men, I don't just work on their capacity to hold eros and sensuality.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see the blood curling pain that runs through the feminine, because she is the alchemist that is actually working that energy through her body. The pain of the earth, whether this is an absolute truth for me. Our planet is in pain. Our planet is in pain from the unconscious behavior of mostly men, right? If we want to call it patriarchy, whatever. When I can get down that rabbit hole, if you want to go down to the roots of patriarchy, but there is a potential to be contributing to that unconsciously when men only want a certain version of polarity. Give me eros, give me sensuality. Anything outside of that, whoa, she's too much, right? And I say this, it's not the fact that she's too much. Your container is not capable to hold her wholeness. She shouldn't have to turn the volume down on her expression. First and foremost, she is moving shit through her body that you can't even fathom, right? That's why the feminine is the reflection of the regenerative life force, like expressed through her body. She's literally like birthing creation through her. And there was a time when men held that power with reverence because they were more connected to the natural world. They didn't need to suppress her. They didn't need to like put a muzzle on her, put a burqa on her. They didn't need to try to control her. They would revere the feminine as like prime oracles. They wouldn't go into battle unless the oracle said it was the time to go to the battle.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there was more balance in our planet. There's always been war. So that's a separate topic, prey, predator wars. We can talk about, philosophically about these concepts and why they exist, but practically there is a system at play that requires dismantling from within. And if women are only dancing on Instagram to get a man, they are contributing to that system. Bless them. Their intentions are well. They're courageous. They're trying to express themselves as much as possible. But if you're only doing it for that, you are feeding that machine as the same amount as men that only want that flavor. So what I do with the men that I work with is I expose their nervous system to the gamut of feminine expression so they can deepen their capacity to be with all her expressions.
Full range. Yeah. Yeah, I love that you brought in also, because I was going to pepper in the piece around, yes, the women also continue that, like we are part of the problem, because that performative sexy that we do is, like you said, feeding the monster, and it feeds the system that keeps us going. So it's like, okay, well, we show up going, oh, well, this is the only part that's accepted. Yeah. And that is not even just accepted, but that's like revered and given attention to. And so we continue that process. And so much of the work that I do is about going, all right, come here. What's actually the most sexy and what's actually filled with the most eros is your truth. And your truth sometimes is your grief, and your truth sometimes is your anger, and your truth sometimes is your chaos or your confusion. It doesn't necessarily have to be like I'm a joyful playmate and I'm Marilyn Monroe and I'm, or whatever,
Totally.
like that particular flavor. And that it can actually be the Kali in all of us. It can be the just deep, soulful, like grieving woman that's feeling the earth in pain, etc. So I love that you bring that piece in, because we are equally responsible for keeping the patriarchy, and maybe it's not even the patriarchy, but the system that is at play. We're still feeding it energy. And so it's important for both of us to take responsibility for the piece that's us. And I think a big piece of what women need to be doing also is increasing their capacity to be okay with their own expression, because it starts with their own self-judgment. Like, oh, I can't be my full self because it's gonna, love will be
Trouble
taken.
him.
Yeah, love will be taken away. I won't be given love. And although we understand that on a primal level, and it's, we can give ourselves compassion around that, it's like, okay, no, we actually have to stretch ourselves into being that full range of a woman and not accepting anything less than for a man to be able to increase his capacity. Now we get to bring our compassion to them and to say, okay, I know it's going to take you a while to capacitate. Right. So like, we have to also be like, okay, I just blew him out hard,
Totally.
like, okay,
Totally.
when it gives me a breather. I'm curious if you have any tips on, like, for women who are like, there's sort of little trepidatious around it. And they're like, I want to do it, but also I look at my man and he's sort of twitching and I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just want to touch on one other thing first. I think one of the principles I kind of diverge from. I mean, I know you're familiar with David Data's work. I personally believe, I don't believe surrender is the goal here. I don't believe a woman's surrender is. I think that actually, that potentially could feed that paradigm that we're trying to. I think I think the higher principle to go for is freedom of expression. Freedom. And ultimately, when we talk about that freedom, there is surrender in that, because you're free. You're fully surrendered in freedom, really, in your fullness, right? It's not this passive letting go only to unfurl for him. If you're going to unfurl, I would rather see you unfurl for the divine, to be honest with you, because that brings more awe through me witnessing that.
Yeah.
So to your second question, yes, with power comes responsibility. Women wield great power, so there should be some awareness around blowing him out of the water. While that doesn't excuse his work in deepening his capacity for depth and presence and breath and so he does his workouts in communities of men, and then he shows up for his life, right? So I think it's really wonderful for couples or people that are dating to practice with one another. Like tonight, we're going to practice where I'm going to lose my shit. Okay, awesome. I can't wait. Set up the room, make it beautiful, light some candles. Okay, draw a line in the middle of the room with something that kind of separates the two spaces. Put on a song that she chooses, that gets her going, and then first let him ground, right? So there's some basic training that the men need to have, what it means to ground, what it needs to move the breath through the body, what it needs to compost energy back into the earth. Like these are just basic practices that men in our community know, right? And then she can go do it in a practice space. Why live it out? Why like trigger each other when he's not ready? He's like, his mind is on something else, and then you blow him out of the water. So I always suggest, make time for practice, play, play.
Mhm.
Like play. Like where did play go?
Mm.
Where, you know?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that would be
Yeah, I
my two
think
cents on that.
intentionality is so key here because again, it's about where you're putting your attention, right? So it's like, eh, I think often what happens is when we don't create those intentional spaces to be in expression and to increase our capacity, we hold back, we hold back. And then what happens? There's fire hosing that suddenly happens, like in a moment where one of the people has like held it in, held it in, held it in, and then just blows up. And what's funny is when I talk to all of my clients about like, why do you not feel comfortable expressing your anger? It's always like, well, I don't want to harm the other person. I'm scared that it's going to have a really big impact. But what we end up doing, the more we hold it back, is we actually end up at some point boiling over. And then we actually can harm the person in front of us because we've not created intentional space for it. We aren't like, baby, I'm really starting to feel some things. And like, I need us to create a space where, like, are you open to holding that for
Yeah.
20 minutes or 30 minutes? And then that way everything can start to move. And so often the thing we're trying to avoid, we actually end up doing, but in an unintentional, unconscious way. And so these practices that you're mentioning that I love so much are a way for there to be more intentionality amongst couples or two
And
people or
connection
two friends even.
and deeper connection, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one piece that, I think taking responsibility for what we're experiencing instead of projecting our shit onto our partners, right? Is key, because people shut down. You tell them you, like, no thanks, didn't ask for it, don't want it right now. But if it's like, I am devastated, I feel so heartbroken when ABC, this makes me feel really unseen and like loved, and like, what are you going to do with that? It's your experience. So really becoming artful in the realm of communication is I think another piece, because when the pain gets too much, what do?
Yeah.
You hold it. I'm going to put it on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think also the other piece that's really important is separating a story from sensation or story from emotion. It's like we often have this
Huge.
thing, our mind loves to come up with a reason why we're feeling a certain way, which sometimes is true and helpful, but often doesn't serve us. And I noticed that in my previous partnership where I felt the most freedom to express, there would be moments like in intimacy where I would like, if I actually just allowed myself to go through all the different waves, I would go through the entire spectrum of all emotions in 1 hour or whatever. And I never, if I would have sat there and gone like, why did I get angry for 10 minutes? And then why was I crying for another 10? And then like, it would just muddle up everything. And if my partner took it and thought it was about him or anything else like that, it would really, there would be closure created in the space that wouldn't give me permission to just be in whatever was coming through my feminine wave, which in that moment, like, at this point, I don't question it. I'm like, I'm crying, I'm laughing, I'm orgasming. Now we're crying again. Okay, cool. That was like, and it just feels good because we're, like you said, we're moving, we're alchemizing that energy. And I think that for both men and women, there isn't enough permission to just be in expressive embodied emotion without necessarily tacking on a story about ourselves or about the other person, and just being like, oh, okay, this is what's arising. Got it.
You're absolutely on point. The body, as does not lie. The body does not lie. So, and this is a feminine superpower that most of the men that come, I would say, not, I don't know, more than half the men that come have a stifled, their femininity is stifled. Why is it stifled? Because as soon as it was expressed in any way, it was shamed, right? Usually as a child, you act free, and you're enjoying life, or you're very like whatever that is. For men, one of the primary experiences is shame. Like you get shamed for that expression. So what do? put a fucking lid on it, don't touch it, and then you lose contact with your body. You lose contact with that part of you. Layers start to come on top of layers, start to come on top of layers. And then your relationships are falling apart because she's like, I can't fucking feel you. The reason you can't feel him is because he can't feel himself. And then his journey to unshackling the feminine within himself begins. There's something incredibly beautiful in seeing men fully be able to express their femininity with power and just freedom. There's something incredibly beautiful. In our community, we work both spectrums. We have masculine practices that really are just like warrior, like based. I mean, you got like 30 guys just power, like raging with like holding an intense amount of power. Next Wednesday, they are just like completely unfurling through, completely in their bodies, expressing. It is the most beautiful thing to hold. And that we need to know how to move up and down that line, no matter where you're resting on that line, to have the capacity, right, to know your own range.
Yeah.
Is to know your own expression. To know your own expression is to create. So our wholeness, I really feel like we're in a time, a very unique time, where we can work with both of these energies in a way that is powerful and connected. In the 60s, it was just about like no power, just be connected. That didn't work for men. Men have, I don't know if you've seen these Haka videos. It's natural, right? It is a natural energy that runs through the masculine.
Yeah.
If it is not expressed, it will go into its shadows and it will express itself in the shadows, and it'll either hurt himself or it'll hurt others.
Yeah, I think that, there is always like in this period, because we went through this phase with, I think a lot of also feminists raising boys, and there being such a tip into the, like, so much feminine. There's a lot of like, oh, I need more cock energy. I need more of the haka energy. I need more of the ha. But then also my experience has been like, I had a lover who I had a really hard time. Like, he had all of that, but then I'd always want more heart. I'm like, I need the union inside of you for me to feel safe, because actually the heart is where a man can attune enough that I feel okay in his primal energy. So it's like, yes, bring that like violence where I know you can like kill something, right? And if your heart is not online as well and you're not attuned, it starts to feel dangerous for me. I need to feel that combination. And I'm curious if you have any tips on someone like myself, right, is in a situation with a man, and you can feel that like they're having a really hard time, obviously because of their childhood, like, and they got shamed. And I'm sure there's that piece, and it's like, like, oh, they're having a really hard time connecting to their heart. Is there something that we can do that will help open them in some way? Because I found that to be really challenging.
It is challenging because it's not your work. It's men working with men that turn that piece. And I think, I'm guessing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but women take it upon themselves to like, I'm going to get you there.
Yes, we love to do that. We love to save them.
Right? I'm going to get you there. I'm going to marry the prince that will become the king. I know he's going to get there. Right? And there's some work, there's some internal reflection for women that do that.
I'm so guilty of that. I think a lot of us are.
Listen, one of the best things I've ever heard is like, men, fucking hurry up. We're waiting.
Yeah.
We're waiting. not even step up, step into your power, right? So this access to the, there's a book that many community of men use called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. Well, the lover is one of the main archetypes, right? So when the warrior, we can, if you're interested, we can go and unpack these, but the warrior is that energy that you're talking about that that protects the boundaries of the kingdom. Something needs to be dealt with. The warrior is the one that's taking care of it. He's the one having uncomfortable conversations. He's the one that shows up when somebody climbs over your fence that shouldn't be there. The lover's not showing up. The warrior's showing up. Okay. And in that moment, right? That moment probably doesn't need the lover as much, but the lover is the part of the masculinity that brings humanity to men. It is the part that it is the artist, it is the lover, it is the one that knows that all things are interconnected, right? It is the one that becomes devotional in his work.
Yeah.
So Gillette and Moore talk about two things that suppress men into shadows. One is that they're not living for something greater than themselves. They're not in alignment with purpose. Okay, they're self-serving. Boys are self-serving. Men that are initiated know that it's not about them, that they know they play a part in the fabric of life. It is not about them, right? So one, it's what are you in service to? The way, the Tao, your path, your spiritual path, right? That's one. Second is the expression of energy. If you suppress the expression of energy, or it is not in alignment to something greater than yourself, it will move into shadow states in order to satisfy itself. So when the warrior part and the lover part and the magician part, which is my favorite thing to talk about of all the archetypes, when these are in alignment to something greater than oneself, the clarity of your purpose, right? Could even be something greater than you, could be your family, could be your community. And these energies are fully expressed, which communities like mine provide an opportunity to. They naturally give rise to this king energy. This king energy is a man that has one foot on the earth and he has another foot in the heavens, right? He's deeply connected to the natural world, right? The heavens, the natural world, the unseen world, the underworld, whatever you want to call it, right? And you can tell because he doesn't run his kingdom by force. He's not a tyrant, which is one of the shadows of the king. Do it my way or X. Or the other pole is where he loses his capacity to speak in his own kingdom, becomes mute in his relationship. We've seen men like that. The woman takes the masculine role. He just, because he can't step into power, just zips up his mouth. And there it is.
Yeah.
But the way we know this man is actually online here is that life is moving through his kingdom. Life force energy is blossoming through his kingdom's blossoming. The people have work. The ironsmith or whatever, he's doing his thing. Everybody's like thriving.
Yeah.
And he brings order out of chaos in his kingdom. So those are the two ways that Gillette and Moore talk about these archetypal energies that run through the masculine, which I would venture to say there are variations similar to the feminine that have certain archetypes that need their full expression.
Yeah, for sure. And also of course, with every archetype, there's the light and the shadow expression of it, right? So I am curious to hear a little bit about, earlier you were talking about how men, when they're, young boys, they're often shamed, right? And it's unintentional most of the time by parents around and this is, by the way, not just men, but you were speaking to men, but it's all of us, where the parents will unintentionally squelch down a moment of expression, and then it creates a template in our program and in our nervous system. So being that you are a parent and a father, How have you been able to navigate that? Because we all know when we think back to our parents, like for most of us, it wasn't a malicious or even intentional moment of, oh yeah, I'm going to squelch my kid's expression. It's usually like you're tired and you're like, okay, you need to stop. Or
Yeah,
you've been yelling for 20 minutes and my head's about to explode, right? So how
totally.
do you work with that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I have, as I was telling you, I have 4 daughters. The youngest one is 5, right? And then 2 teenagers, which in a way, but let's talk about the 5-year-old, okay? Our biggest challenge when this other part of us wants to come out to like dominate her because she's not complying, or we need to get to the bus for her school, and what happens is we get, do it my way,
Mhm.
right? So in order to avoid that, we want to give something more space. We don't want to, if I'm like putting up an Instagram post and then there's like 3 minutes to go, and I'm like, hurry up, like, come on, can you please get dressed? Like, can you put on your shoes? Like, she doesn't have my attention fully. 2, there's not enough space for her to transition. A child, boy or a girl, is purely in their feminine. Purely in their feminine. So learning how to work with that. And that could really work in relationships too. Give something more space. You have a point to make, but give more space to get to it, to make the transition to maybe landing on something deeper that she's trying to get to.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, we could all use more space, right? All of us, even as
Slow,
adults.
yeah, like slow things down.
Yeah.
Slow things down. The
Yeah.
society wants us to like speed things up.
Mm,
Like speed up for what? Production,
totally.
production, production, consumption.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so I want to talk more about fatherhood and the initiation of fatherhood, because I'm going to be real with you.
Yeah,
I'm in a position, so I'm 41, and I, for the longest time, have wanted to have a family. And it doesn't necessarily mean a biological child or anything like that, but I would like to be building some sort of family unit. Might
yeah.
be me, a partner, and 3 dogs. It might be me, a partner, and an adopted kid, like, or whatever, but
Okay.
some version of a family. And most of my female friends are also sort of in my age range.
Yeah.
And what I've been noticing, and I preface this with, I, of course, see the world through a certain lens, and I'm in a very particular bubble of a particular social group and also in the coaching industry and whatnot. So I get that I'm not looking at the entire world. And within my little bubble,
Yeah.
what I've started to notice is a pattern
Mhm.
of women in their late 30s, to mid 40s,
Yeah.
who are also desiring family, and every single man that they are dating or trying to build with is not ready to build. And I'm curious if that's something that you've been noticing as a trend in your work at all. And for me, like, I've been really deeply desiring to understand like
Mhm.
what it is that men are needing that is having them feel that fatherhood is not the next step at that phase.
Yeah. Such a great question. I really, and my wife and I met 7 years ago, and we have a 5-year-old together. This is my second marriage, right? So she was 42 when she had my youngest. Um, I didn't sense that energy from her. There's this energy of like, I'm running out of time for
Mm,
some women. And I want to talk about the roots of I'm running out of time. I mean, I think some of it is biological and legitimate. I think some of it is legitimate. I think some of it is, it's also fed from that system that we're trying to dismantle, right? There's this element of you need to be here at this point by this time. I think that's absolutely bullshit, right? I think that creates anxiety. What I know of, like, what I know of men or myself, when confronted with that energy, there is a little bit of like, ooh, like what is like, I don't like, what is that?
Mhm.
Right. So, and I also know that I work with many, many men. That's all I do, morning till night, is talk with men. And many of them that are single, they do want that.
Mm.
They do want that. So I don't think there's a lack of men wanting to go down that path. I think it's also like men don't have to deal with that, right? So like a man can have a baby in its 70s, right? So there is some deep surrender work for women that are in this space, but we don't know how life presents itself moment to moment. Molecules appear out of nowhere. Moments appear out of nowhere. I mean, you could be walking next second, it's like meet the love of your life in a second. So I think getting away from the energetic race that may be playing is one way to like not participate in that. Be like, it's high level shit. Men don't have to do this. It's high level shit,
Yeah.
but making peace with the fact that you may not have a child
Mm.
traditionally, making like there are certain pieces that because maybe you had it, like letting a story go, then that story could have been a beautiful story. It could have been an enchanted story of a 10-year-old girl, right? But let's let go. Jared Cabal does this thing called, he's passed on subsequently, but he ran the quantum light breath, and he talks about letting old stories die so newness can find its way.
Yeah.
Make space for that unexpected like atom to just appear. Pun not intended. Right, when I say atom, I know, yeah. So I think I would say don't engage with that energy. Don't engage with that energy of like your time is running out.
Right.
And I don't know, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, no, I think it's great for women. And I'm curious, I mean, I love hearing you say that there are men who do want that, because I truly I'm just running around like in the world just for fun, like being like, who here, like, can I find a man who either has become a father or is even interested in that? And I'm finding such, like, I don't see them, and it could be my lens. I totally get that I'm on that journey, but I'm curious if there are men who want that and there are women that want that. What is what do you think is the disconnect that's happening, other than the piece that, of course, if we bring urgency, it's repulsive, and then the man's like, oh, okay, I don't, give me some space.
There's two things I want to, there's two pieces here that I want to talk about. One, I'll start with, somebody said, hey, do you know that you if you wanted to, you could turn your community into like kind of a men's group dating thing. I'm like, wait a minute, whoa, that is so not my world. But there are there are seems to be camps of women and men that want to like find each other. I think they will. Okay. I think they will. I think there was another piece that I want to talk about, and this is not necessarily this for women, it applies to men. If we have limiting beliefs, we will look to find the evidence of those limiting beliefs reflected back to us. That is how the survival mechanism of humans work. So if I believe love is hard to find, guess what I'm looking for? I'm looking for evidence that love is hard to find. When you want to buy a new car, you want to buy that white Tesla, guess what you're seeing all the time? You're seeing the white Tesla. Oh, there goes another one. Oh, there goes another one.
For sure.
Right? Now, if your deepest desire is to have something different, you're not going to see it. Why? Because your limiting belief wants reinforcement. It's a survival mechanism, right? So if I'm like, you know, I got to make sure I don't get eaten by a tiger, I'm scouting for tigers. So the belief that was inserted into you, it wasn't by choice. The limiting beliefs that were given to us, we need to bring consciousness and awareness around what they are. And we need to replant new tapes. we need to get to deep soil and plant new tapes. And there's different ways, that I do that with men. But I believe you can have anything you want in this life.
Oh, I mean, you totally can. I'm curious to see the stats. I'm still cynical about this one, but I admit that could be that's probably just my shit. But it's like, I do feel in general that if we were to zoom out, that men overall, when they have a choice nowadays, are taking a lot longer to have kids than they did back in the day, because there wasn't, there was societal pressure back then. It was more like, that's what you do. You're 28, you're a man, you have your 9 to 5, then you get married, you do the thing. And now there's more space for freedom, which I think is really beautiful. I think men do need to go out and spend more time finding themselves and going through this phase of, okay, we're no longer in like the standard capitalistic patriarchal system. Like, who am I as a man? And individuate. Without necessarily going into providership role automatically. But I don't know, it just feels to me that there's like, what at 35, they used to be ready. Now it's like, oh, we're going to wait until we're 45. And then I'm like, okay, but at what point are you ready? And then the rest of us have like no eggs left. So I don't know. I mean,
I love it. Listen, I totally get it. I have my wife is in that same age. So her friends, I get that energy. I know, I totally understand it. But I'm here to tell you, I think there's two paradigms at play. I think you got some guys that are, they're kind of, I don't know if I don't want to TikTok world, or kind of like move on to the next thing. And
yeah,
but okay, that's at play. That's at play. But I gotta tell you, most of the men that I work with, and we talk about relationships all the time, whether they're in one, want to get in one, or detoxing from one to like set themselves up for the next thing at a better version of themselves, are looking for deep, meaningful relationships. In my community anyway.
This is great news. Listen, I'm so happy you're reporting this, because I thought you were going to be like, yes, there's a crisis and here's that. But if there isn't, great.
But I'm also a hopeless romantic. So I just want to put that in there, so that my perception could slightly be skewed with that. But I really believe, I know for a fact, there are a lot of men looking for meaningful, deep, intimate, vulnerable, sensual relationships. And
great.
Yes.
Good news. So, okay, one more question about fatherhood, and I'm moving away from my own little thing. And that is, I'm so curious to know, in your process, I mean, I guess this is going to take you back quite a while, but when you got initiated into fatherhood with your first child, what was the biggest shift for you that you want to share? Like, what was something that really, and like a positive shift, like something that you could not access in your presence, your existence, your reality as a man until you became a father?
It's such a great question. Such a great question. So I grew up with an absent father. So there was, there was shadow aspects of that playing out in my life in my early 20s. I had my first kid at 27, right? And I had these unfounded fears of not being able to love her or not knowing how to be with her. Like, just how do I be with this, at that age? And so there were unfounded fears that, that once she was here, it, something new comes into the field. I can't really say it's, it just, everything changed. I went from like the brain to the body. My body knew, my body knew.
Yeah.
My body knew how to do the things that my brain said, you won't be able to do that. You didn't have a father that, like, whatever that thing, at that time I was young on my path. So like the noise of the chatter was pretty close to my ear, before I started the path, the noise of the chatter was between my ears, and then it came out of my ears, and then eventually it went further and further away until it's in the other room. Right. So
Yeah.
I think we're innately designed
We
to
are.
do this thing, and to be open to how that looks.
Yeah.
Maybe you
I love that.
meet a guy with 3 kids, boom, now you got 3 kids. I went from 1 daughter to 4. So I had my eldest daughter, and then I met my wife, my current wife. She had 2 daughters. They became my love daughters, which I call instead of stepdaughters. And then we had another one together. Like, that was not planned. Like, none of that was like, I thought I was done.
Yeah. Yeah. Just kidding. A few more, a few more women. I love that you're surrounded by so much feminine energy as, as someone who is leading men in navigating that, or at least that's a piece of the work. So you get to practice a lot. So I'd love that as a final question with our time together today, and we could keep talking forever, but I would love to know if you and the men, maybe you work with, have any like requests from the women. Like, if there's something that you just want us to know about your experience or something that you'd like to request, we are just here, open arms, would love to hear. What is something that feels really important, something that maybe is missing, or something you'd like more of from us?
So thank you. What a great question. Thank you. Men like hold all the time. Men are holding shit all the time. I could put you in 30 minutes of masculine practice.
I die.
And you would get a taste of what we do from the moment we open our eyes to the moment we go to sleep. We are containers, constantly holding poses from one pose to the next. And one of the most beautiful things my wife does for me is she'll out of nowhere come and she'll say, I want to appreciate you for 2 minutes. She'll put her hand on me and she'll say, I appreciate you for providing for our family. I appreciate you for holding. I appreciate you for the way you love our kids. I appreciate you for taking little one to school every day. I appreciate. And so this appreciation, we don't need much. But if we could just feel that appreciation, it goes really a long, long way. We feel seen, we feel respected, we feel loved, all in just 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Okay, so everyone listening, take note. Yes. An appreciation practice. And that's beautiful for your partner. And if you don't have a partner, it's great to appreciate the masculine around you. I know that in the periods that I'm not partnered, I love just whether I'm doing it out loud verbally, or if I'm just even doing it energetically in my head, like, thank you for the man that's dropping the mail and the packages. Thank you for, whoever that's doing this, that opened the door for me, walking
Tell
in,
him,
or
tell him, tell him. Oh, you know what you'll do to a man that doesn't even know you, and you say, thank you for dropping the mail to me today. I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
He doesn't get that. One last thing I'll say is there are many women, including my wife, who are who are running a household. Guess what you need to be? You need to be on your masculine. You're like dealing with shit, schedules and appointments and like structures. I give my wife appreciation too. Anyone who holds tremendous amount of structure and pose and is a container for various things deserves to be seen, loved, and appreciated, including women.
For sure. Thank you for adding that in. Yeah. And I got to say, you guys, like when I would have to switch roles and do I can do feminine practice till the end of time. I mean, it is just so easy for me. And then put me in masculine for like 10 minutes. And I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. Like I can't. And I'm talking about like the static masculine, like very much like holding space for someone else's feminine expression, or being in like Wim Hof breath, or like any of those things. I'm just like, oh my God, I don't want to do this.
Totally.
So I think that every woman, it's mandatory that she take on the masculine pole and do some of the masculine practices to really fully somatically appreciate the level of nervous system, like capacity it takes to actually be still, because we can create the story that like, oh, well, it's so, I'm doing so much because it's so dynamic and expressive and like he's just there, and I'm like, oh no, he's doing a million things. It's just it's internal. So yeah.
And look, you have two types of men. The one that brings presence is actually holding, right? Now, how he's holding is a different story, but the one that brings presence and breath to a moment is with you. There are other men that are completely checked out, and there's that too, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love, I've never done this, but no, that's not true. My wife runs a circle through her community, and I've taught one of her circles where I ran a couple masculine practices. Get a taste.
It's
give
so
them
important.
a taste.
So important. Yeah. You guys are doing beautiful work, and thank you so much for leading our men into deeper understanding of themselves, of nature, of the inner union, and everything that is really needed right now in the world for us to heal. Yeah. So appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Nadia. This was really a wonderful exchange. I'm glad we took the time to do it.
Yeah. So if people want to find you, I know we'll have it in the show notes, but I'd love for them to also hear what's the best place for them to follow you, your work, send their men possibly to you.
Thank you. Embodiedmasculine.com. That's a really great place to start. And they can follow me on Instagram with my last name at Khalighi, Khalighi.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
If you enjoyed the guest on this episode, you can head on over to the show notes to get more info on their bio, their work, their website, and all the good stuff. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening. We would love for you to rate and review the show, and I'd love to know your takeaways from the episode. You can do that by DMing me on Instagram at Nadia Munla.